Hi, hi, hi. Hey, hey. And what the heck? Hello, hello. Welcome to another edition of Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video cast. This is a bi-weekly show normally that you can watch every other Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Only this time we've got what we're considering a bonus episode for the show. Uh, you may know that this coming week, actually by the time this is posted, Paul McCartney will be turning 80 years old. Hard to believe, but it is true. So we thought we should have some kind of a tribute show for Paul. And so we're all going to be talking about what it is about the man that we admire. And I've been told we can spend an hour, 10 hours, it all depends upon my co-hosts, how much they want to indulge. And you don't know how much they like to indulge. There will be no rules on this show. As you can tell from Kit, it's a party atmosphere as we're celebrating Paul's birthday. And why don't I introduce my co-hosts? I sure hope you know them already. First of all, she's the queen of all Beatles social media. We should just call her the queen of everything. I must admit, I was very confused a few days ago when I heard about the Queen's Jubilee, and nobody said a thing about Kit. But we know her for her books, songs we're singing, guided tours through the Beatles' lesser-known tracks, Michael Jackson FAQ, and also Beatles and their fandom with Ken Womack. Welcome, Kit O'Toole.
Thank you so much, Ken. I appreciate that. I love the Jubilee comment. That was great. Hi, Joe. Hi, Tom.
Hi.
Also, we have Tom Hunyadi with us. He is half of the team of Two Legs, along with Eddie Nichols, a solo Paul McCartney podcast. You blink your eye, there's a new show out there. He's always busy with a new show. His promos run longer than our shows sometimes. But welcome, Tom.
Hey, Ken, thanks. And Kit, Joe, good to see you. And, another birthday, 80 years. Wow, incredible.
Yep. And of course, we have Joe Mayo, sometimes known as Mean Mr. Mayo, and he's anything but mean. He has his own YouTube channel where he pretty much does everything. A lot of Beatles content, a lot of Fab Gab shows where he rates Beatle and solo Beatle albums, all things about pop culture, records, films, you name it. He covers it all. Joe, welcome.
Hello, Ken. Thank you very much. And hi, Kit. And hi, Tom. It's great to be here for this special occasion of Mr. McCartney at 80.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes I really just can't believe it's a sign of our age too, depending on how long we've been following this guy. But there's so many things to admire about him. And what we're going to do is go around like a round table and each list one thing at a time from each of the four of us. And we'll keep going until we can't think of any more, which could run 10 hours. So why don't we start first of all with the Queen? One thing for the moment anyway. I'm sure there's a long list of what it is about Paul that you admire.
Well, absolutely his creativity, which, really came through just, this past year with Get Back. Watching him compose Get Back and it just seemingly out of thin air in front of our eyes. I mean, just sitting down with his bass and just right there. I mean, how many people could do that? I mean, I just incredible, and how he can, just write something. I mean, we all know the story about Picasso's last words, how Dustin Hoffman said, okay, here's, here were Picasso's last words, write a song. And he just sat there and said, okay, and did it. And that kind of creativity to just be, to be able to just compose a song right there out of thin air, or even like Some Days. I think it was, yeah, it was some days when he said, oh, I'm waiting for Linda to do, I think it was an interview or something like that. I'm just going to challenge myself to write a song. And he writes Some Days, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous song. I as a writer, not of course a musician, but I mean that I can't imagine doing something like that. I mean, that takes talent. That's genius level. And I just admire him so much for being able to do that, and maybe just a wee bit of jealousy too.
Well, definitely when you watch Get Back, you notice what a fertile period that was for Paul and coming
Right.
up with ideas. It's just pouring out of him. You just reminded me, Kit, of Electric Arguments
Mhm.
and how that entire album was put together. It was a challenge to get youth, Martin Glover, to go into the studio one day out of each month and just create a song from scratch. That was the challenge. You have a day to do this. What can you come up with? So that's kind of a similar thing. I'm sure there's so many different ways that Paul's composed his music, but that's just, one of many.
Yep. Yep. Mhm.
Okay, Joe, what's your first reason for admiration?
Well, the first one would be the gift for melody. However, I want to kind of go to something else. Work ethic of Paul, I've always admired. And as somebody who, when it comes to a regular 9 to 5 jobs, the ones he's had and the one I just retired from, I have very little work ethic. Okay. But when it's something that I really enjoy, like say on my YouTube channel, I mean, I'm tireless with that. I could go on all the time. And I imagine that if I was in the Beatles or had a band like that, or I was an actor or a TV star or something. Anybody out there need anybody? I'm here. I'm
Mhm.
available. I think I could see myself as one of those people that are committed now to really giving it my all. Now, I like that about Paul. I mean, he is like 250 or more percent invested, right? And with the Beatles and even solo, I mean, he's there for it all. With the Beatles, he's the one who'll stay late if he has to and work something to the bone to get it just right. And whereas maybe John, let's get out of here, we're
Mm.
done. Maybe George and Ringo, maybe not as much. I gotta say, I've always admired that, and that would be me. I think, as I say, a person who never really liked the jobs that he's done. Me, but if I was doing something like that, I really think I'd be really engaged like that. I just think it's incredible when you think of Paul before he was with the Beatles. Really, on his own, he was interested in writing and stuff. And then when he got the Beatles into it with John and George, he just gave it his all. And to this day, I like how he's involved in every facet and he's into it. Like in other words, I'll do the videos. I'll make the music videos. I'll make the promotional posters, the stills. If I have to do like it's time to take a photograph to promote something. I just love how he's invested. He seems to relish it and knows this is what it is and loves it. That's maybe other than his gift for melody, as I say, and creativity, as Kit was saying. That's the other thing that strikes me the most
Mm.
about Paul. I love the fact that he is so into it and so committed and such a perfectionist and wants to really get it done right. And that's my next favorite thing about him.
Yeah, he's very hands-on in all of his work. You just made me think. Sometimes when you guys say something, all of a sudden an image will flash into my head. The Flaming Pie box set and how he was involved with the cover art, with
Right.
the artist
Yeah.
who's going to be on the front cover. A lot of artists may not even care. Take a photo, put it on there. That's it. I'm happy with it. But no, Paul's involved with pretty much every aspect of his career.
Mhm.
Anyway, Tom, you are next.
Thank you, Ken. When we knew we were going to do this, I mean, the first thing that popped in my mind is something that, I mean, a lot of artists can say, there's some that are doing this kind of disappointed in them. But for me, he is not resting on his laurels. He could have retired a long time ago. If he had stopped making music after the Beatles broke up, his legacy would have been well secured, intact, whatever, as one of the greatest of all times. But no, he chose to forge on, and he's continuing to forge on now, creating new music and challenging himself and listeners, and just, you know, writing. The fact that he's still just writing music and having a great time doing it is awesome. You know, to have a #1 album here at 76 with Egypt Station, and then a #1 album at 78 in the UK with McCartney 3, just goes to show that people still care about what he's doing. I mean, yeah, there might be 70 versions of that album to buy, you know, but the fact that remains is people still care about what he's doing. And I mean, obviously, you know, as someone that's doing a weekly show on him, there's still enough to talk about, to where, you know, a 52-year career. I mean, he could have ended it 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and his legacy would have been, you know, well intact as one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time. And I just admire the fact that he just wants to keep going. I think I remember the story of him talking about Barry Gibb wanting to retire, and he's like, why? You know, and pretty much convinced him to not retire. You know, writers' rights. You know, and you know, and I get sad when I see artists like, you know, Billy Joel just going out there and, you know, not creating any more music anymore because he's such a talent.
Yeah.
You know, why would you want to do that? Just because you might not sell as many records as you used to? You know, I say BS to that. You know, go back in the studio, make a new album. You know, I mean, I'm sure a lot of fans would die to hear a new Billy Joel record. But yeah, I mean, the fact that he's still working and not resting is top for me.
Wow, very interesting what you just said about Billy Joel, because I question, you know, there's no way you could tell me that he's dried up and he can't write any
Right.
new music.
Right.
Right.
Someone like him, I'm sure, can come up with songs fairly easily. He always has. And yet I guess he feels like he has nothing new to say. But
Right.
he's happy to just go out there periodically and keep on performing, and his fans still love it. And I guess he's just content with that. But yeah, interesting. For me, it's kind of a combination of some of the things that you guys have said. Just the overall tremendous talent that he is. He has got to be the most versatile artist we've ever had in all of music. When you consider all the different styles of music that he's written in, all the different types of vocals that he sang in,
Right.
everything from the low range vocals of Lady Madonna to the falsetto voice of Girlfriend and So Bad, to the character voice of We All Stand Together, to you know, the helter skelter screaming voice in Monkberry Moon Delight. He's done so many different types of vocals, the soft delivery of something like Distractions. You know, he's all over the place as a vocalist, as a songwriter, as a musician. Look at all the instruments the man plays. Everything from bass to acoustic guitar to electric guitar to mandolin to ukulele to piano to drums. And I'm sure if you look at his album credits, a lot of instruments you may not even be familiar with.
Vegetables.
So yeah. And when it comes to styles of music,
Kazoo.
Yep.
you're 16. When you talk about styles of music, it's very easy to just focus on pop and rock. But what about all the classical music that he's done? What about all the ambient music that he did, especially on the first 2 Fireman albums? You know, he's kind of a dilettante at a lot of different things. Done a little bit of country music. You could say certain songs like Distractions or Right Away is sort of in the jazz field. He's really, and the standards when he would do Kisses on the Bottom, you know, he's really all over the place. And, you know, that's not everyone's cup of tea. Not everybody likes an artist who's, you know, they'd rather have someone who's very focused and has one style of music. But there are plenty of people like myself who admire artists who keep trying to do different things all the time and keep trying to do challenges, like you said, Tom. Just the fact that he would write an oratorio. You don't just suddenly start writing an oratorio just because you write pop music, but he took the challenge and he felt he could do it. And lo and behold, he did it.
He even tried movies too. Not really, seriously. He tried to go into that. I'm not,
Yeah, that's
did that as well.
right. He wrote for ballet. There's very little that he hasn't done. And everything he does well. I'm not saying every single song he's ever written is great, but most of what he's done, I'm certainly very satisfied with. So as an overall talent, I don't think there's anyone that even challenges him, to be honest. This is just my opinion. I just think that he's probably the greatest songwriter of the second half of the 20th century. And as an overall talent, once you add up everything else, as a songwriter, as a musician, as a singer, I think he's the best that there is.
Agreed.
I don't even think I can say anymore after all.
Good night,
I must
everybody.
concur. I must concur.
So but let's keep going round and round. Let's start with you, Tom. We'll shuffle it up a bit.
All right. Yeah, I mean, the other thing too, and Ken, you've been a part of our series on Two Legs for this, and his willingness to help other musicians, work with them, and give them his time and energy to help them create something that might be special for them. And he's been doing this for decades, right? I mean, he's been doing this since the 60s, lending his talents to other musicians. Some have been successful, some have maybe not been so successful, but the fact is that he's willing to give up his time where he could be creating, music for himself, but no, he's unselfish in that matter, and going out there, whether he's, in recording it and sending it, or going to the studio with those people to help create something. Was it the Lindsay girl, I think, and she was right next door to him in another studio, and he just pops in and they just do a new cover of So Bad,
Right.
and he just comes in and kind of like does backing vocals for that, and he probably didn't know her, and he didn't have to do that, and here he is, a young talent, and maybe he sees that and he just said, hey, let's create something, and they created something beautiful. Whether it's the rock thing with with the Nirvana reunion, or it's just something, call a friend up like Steve Miller and let's just help me record or whatever, and or just going to the studio like to help Steve Miller and blow off some steam, and create a song. So it's impressive that, yeah, Joe, and you talked about this work ethic, and maybe he, that rubbed off of other people, and see what it is, the creating process. If I'm a musician and I want to be successful, I obviously want to be hanging around with people that are also successful, and picking their brain and learning what they can do and seeing why they're successful. And why wouldn't you want like an advice or an hour of McCartney's time, just to pick his brain a little bit. But yeah, but his want, his unselfishness to help other musicians is really, I think, very admirable. I can't say it as well.
And even more recently, look at the Umoza music project.
Right.
The group from Africa, and he's lending his bass part, which is pretty cool what he played.
Sure is.
Okay, very good, Tom. Joe, you're on the air.
I'm not. Thank you. I would say, how do I word this? With regard to Paul handling fame, I've always liked the way he handles his fame. He's very level-headed. He doesn't, if he lets it get to his head, which I'm sure it does at times, he handles it so in a cool way and so well, and comes off as very human. And I like what he's said in interviews, that the way he deals with it is he looks at it as like that this Paul McCartney guy, the star, that's him,
Mhm.
it's not me, I'm still me, Paul, the human guy, and I always liked the way he was able to handle it. I mean, some people get completely pompous, let it go to their heads. It could be really annoying and domineering, or think that they're, better than everybody else, kind of thing. Whether he does or not, he certainly treats people well. I think overall, he's generally pleasant, and that includes also people that he has to run into, who come into his path, whether it's on tour, maybe it's people that are preparing the food. People. He has to meet all these people. How many people in a day does he have to come
Right.
come across?
Right.
And he seems to put them at ease. People have said that, right away.
Mhm.
He makes you feel comfortable and calm and everything. And I got to say, I like that. I mean, I'm throwing John in here every now and then because they were, in so many ways, they were so different, like a contrast. I mean, I'm a big John guy, so to speak. However, the thing that gets me is I do admire the fact that Paul could be a little bit smarter about how to handle people. John, one of the things I liked, he would speak his mind. Yeah, whatever, say whatever, whenever he felt like it. But there is something to be said, having a quality, I guess, about being able to know when to say it and not to say it, kind
Mhm.
of thing. As much as
Right.
I, admired that about John too, that he would speak his mind, and who cares, aside what people think or whatever.
Right.
The balance thing. It's so beautiful about them. Paul basically would be more diplomatic about it, or, maybe I think there's even a bit in Get Back Now. I think when John talks about he just got sick or whatever from he got stoned or whatever, he was saying during the bit with Peter Sellers
Uh-huh.
moment. And I think Paul says something like that. We really have to hear about that now, Mr. Lennon, or something like that. It's like things. On the one hand, I watch that and I'm like, oh, Paul, come on, man, this is fun, this is cool.
Hmm.
But then I think no, but in another way, there's a time and place for everything. You
Right.
know,
Right. I
so
think Paul
he seems
recognized.
to be able to know when that is. Sometimes it's frustratingly so, uh, but he can be so like guarded or private. But by the same token, I admire it that he
Mhm.
can do that. You know?
Yeah. Um, I remember Paul when he was upset about some of the things John was saying publicly about him after the
Right.
Beatles breakup, and you know, I think part of him wishes he could have attacked back in the press, but then he realized that it was smarter not to. You
Right.
know,
The high road.
yeah, it's certain things are for public consumption. Some things should be said privately.
Right.
And it is true that we admire John for speaking his mind because at least we
Yep.
know how he felt. But at the same time, you may not know how Paul completely feels. But yet he always does take the high road. He never badmouths anybody publicly, really.
And
You
you
know,
think about those little jabs that George Harrison would get in from time to time against George, and then George
Right.
would never really retaliate.
Mhm.
I'm
You know?
trying to remember what kind of jabs about George.
Well, he would talk about wanting to work more with Willie Weeks than in a
Oh,
band
George.
than Paul.
Oh,
You
George
know,
is
he
jet.
would say, well, maybe he doesn't have enough good material of his own during the Broad Street
Right.
I
soundtrack.
love something.
You know,
Yikes.
so just those little jabs in there. But Paul always took the high road and didn't really say anything back publicly, anyways.
I
So,
misunderstood. I thought you meant Paul taking a
Right.
stand with George.
oh right, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering when George said that, which was on Canadian MTV. I thought he
Mhm.
was referring to Press to Play. I wasn't
Maybe
sure if it was that or Broad Street. But
right, either or. But
yeah, and I remember watching that and saying, "Did he really say that?"
Yeah.
Do you remember one of my favorites? I think there's a bit in Anthology, or is it one of the an extra footage of Anthology somewhere I saw where George is sitting there, and I think Paul comes in, and he's wearing a jacket. I I always like this, and they hug or
uh,
something, and he says, "Is that
uh,
the vegetarian?" Oh, no, leather jacket or something like that.
Oh.
You remember that? I don't know where I saw that, but it's
Mhm.
there.
it's there. It's there. Yeah.
Oh
I just don't
dear.
remember where. It's not in the regular anthology, but where did I see that? And I thought that's so funny. You know, is that like,
Wasn't that
you
around
know,
the same time too that he tried to like, offer Ringo a drink? You see him a picture of him trying to offer Ringo a drink or something like.
oh well, there's one thing I
Yikes.
always like. This might not fit this very well, but I remember in the Rolling Stone a few years ago, there was an interview or something where you know, Ringo has been sober for so long now, and
Right.
Paul tries. So he's not always an angel. He tried to like say, "Come on, Ringo, have a whiskey, have a whiskey," and then Ringo says, "What? And look like you?"
Oh, I think I did see.
I
Yeah.
read that. I think
I
that
did,
was I
yeah.
think that was Paul. Is it an interview? I don't know if it was an interview with Paul or Ringo, and must have been Paul because I remember Paul laughing good naturedly in the words
Right.
and saying, "I deserved it."
Right.
Oh
But
man.
see, that's Paul. I mean, he could have taken offense to that comment, you know, and,
Mhm.
and just kind of, you know, ripped them back, but he didn't.
Hmm.
Or he could have threw him out of his house. You know,
Yeah.
you know, I gotta get that in there.
Uh,
Even
Oh
Paul loses it once in a while.
yeah.
Yeah.
didn't say he was perfect.
No.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Nobody is.
Yep. He'd be the first one to admit he's not.
That's right.
Anyway, Kit, you are next.
All right. Well, I was thinking about this recently, after having seen him in concert, that I always admire entertainers who really know how to command the stage. And
Hmm.
boy, does he ever. And it was great to see a reminder of that again. And obviously, he doesn't need to have choreography to do it. He doesn't need backup dancers. He doesn't need
Wardrobe
anything.
changes.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, just that line about taking his jacket
Yeah.
off, and he said, "This is the only costume change you're going to see all night." Yeah,
Right.
he doesn't need any of that. He really knows, kind of like a little bit related to what you were saying, Joe. He knows how to connect with people. He really does. And it's just fascinating to see how the audience reacts to him. I mean, just with such emotion. And I mean, when they yell "I love you" at him, I mean, they mean it. I mean, they really do. And there were times at that Orlando recently where he was speaking, and this was a big arena.
Mhm.
You could hear a pin drop when he was speaking. That's rare at a show that size.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's just rare to see someone command the stage like that. I mean, it was maybe you'd say like Sinatra, was a master at that. But Paul, in a different way, just knows how to just capture the audience, and really holds them in the palm of his hand, but does it because he's just so likable. He's just has such a likable personality. And sure, a lot of people, I think, are also reacting to they're reliving memories of these
Mhm.
wonderful songs. But I also think it's his personality, it's his confidence, and it's just, as I said, is his likability, his relatability, that even though he's Paul McCartney, the big star, he still can kind of laugh at himself. And even though there are a lot of the stage patter is what we've heard before,
Mhm.
for those who haven't heard it before, they love it. I mean, it's he seems still relatable in many ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, he just that is a real talent to be able to um, have that kind of stage presence. And as I said, you don't need effects, backup dancers, anything like that, and choreography.
Yeah. Well, I guess as you get older, sometimes you begin to realize that with certain people like Paul or anyone that has been with you, in my case, practically my whole life, that these people are not just musicians and artists. I actually consider them to be family.
Mhm.
Maybe not blood family, but
Right.
so much a part of everything you've been through. They've been there through so many moments of your life. You've witnessed what they've been through, the good times, the tragedies, you know, whether you were brought up with Paul through the Beatles or Wings or a solo career, whatever decade you discovered Paul, you know, he's part of who you are, and
Yeah.
his music is a part of you. You know, so many incredible memories that we have of him. And I think he knows that, and he's able to connect with people on that level. And you know, you will have times, like you said, Kit, when certain people will cry at a show.
Yeah.
Certain songs will generate that.
Mhm.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah, it's true. As you said, like these songs are like become like part of your DNA. I mean, they really do. I
uh-huh.
mean, that's the truth. And but yeah, and people just really connect to him. And as I said, you know, I think I said this in the previous show we did, you know, that the guy sitting next to me who was, you know, 24, I mean, he just was so excited, you know,
Mhm.
to see him. I mean, he just couldn't wait to see him. And when Paul, I mean, he just walked down the stage, you know, and
Right.
I mean, this guy
Yeah.
was ready to burst. I mean, he
Yeah,
just was
yeah.
so
It's great.
excited. It was just
I love
great.
it.
Yeah.
Some of those videos, you know, that are out of the concerts. I forget what song it is. Like you say, you see people get emotional, and there's a grown man, you know, an older man crying.
Mhm.
I love that stuff. Some people
Yeah.
are like, when
Yeah.
you see these, oh, I don't want to see the audience. I just want to see Paul, you know. But I love it if they time it right and they just have
Yeah.
a quick shot of a young person getting into it, singing, a little kid singing, then another minute guy with a gray beard, you know, who's like, you know, in his 60s or 70s, and he's crying when he hears "All My Loving" or something one more time. You know,
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
I get goosebumps talking about it because it's such a part, as you say, it's such a part of our DNA. You
Yep.
know, and there he is. He's doing it, you know, in front of you, and that presence. And it doesn't even matter, as I say, okay, you know, if he doesn't sound as good as he did when he was younger, although a lot of people are saying he sounds pretty good now, you know, in this current tour.
Yep.
Anyway, but it's just the power of it all. You know,
Yeah.
it's overwhelming. You know,
It is.
the whole thing, the whole 60-year trip.
Hmm.
Yep. For
Yeah, and
sure.
it is quite a thing when you observe someone who hasn't seen him live ever, or
Right.
only have seen him a few times. And it's like one person I know through a friend of ours brought a friend and couldn't believe he was doing juniors for him. I can't believe it. He's doing juniors. You know, you could have been brought up with Wings first, you know,
Yep.
and
Right.
songs mean a lot to you. So, yeah. But the second reason that I will list, which I know has already been brought up, is that he continues to work and create. And here's a man that, you know, as we're doing this show, turns 80 years old. He's out there touring. It's my guess he's going to keep on touring because it's so much in his blood. We'll see. But he's always making new albums. He recently put out McCartney 3. He's got a musical in the works with It's a Wonderful Life, although we haven't heard anything about it recently. He's got an animated film that's going to be coming out called High in the Clouds. He's got all these projects, and that's only what we know about. That's not even counting, you know, whatever new songs he's written. And I just can't imagine, yes, he does have time to relax and go out on vacation with Nancy or with the family. But in his spare time, he's always creating, he's always writing. So, you know, this is what he loves to do. And it's like you said, Tom, he could have just on the Beatles alone, he could have stopped there, you know, what he did back then. But the fact of the matter is, it's all these years later, it's 52 years since the official breakup of the Beatles, and he's still out there doing what he loves to do. And I think, like I said before, he loves challenges. He likes to spread himself out and do all these different things, whether it's classical music, writing a book of poetry like Blackbird, doing the paintings that he has done. Um,
Because
you know,
we know he was the real artist of the Beatles too.
what's that?
So because we know he was the real artist of the Beatles as well.
Yeah.
They all,
That's what I was looking for.
I know that you're kidding there, but they all
Yeah, no, that was for
just
Joe.
saying that
Well, yeah, he did it all, Paul. You know, he's the
in
best.
his spare time, he likes to just keep creating. This is what he
Mhm.
loves to do.
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter whether he's 50 or 80 or 100. As long as he's healthy and he can keep creating, he's going to keep doing it.
Right. Yeah, I'm curious if this, It's a Wonderful Life thing ever comes to fruition, and if it doesn't happen, what does he do with that music? Does he do it himself? Does he,
Well, we don't know the status
bring
of
it
it.
into it? Yeah, exactly. We don't. I mean, we haven't heard anything about it since COVID, really.
Yeah.
I think COVID's
So,
the main reason why we haven't heard anything
Yep.
about it. And since
right,
it's not totally gone away,
right,
who knows
Yeah.
when it's going to premiere? But
right.
we do know he's written the music for it. A
Yep,
lot of plans have been
absolutely.
underway. They were prior to COVID hitting the world. And
Mhm,
so, as far as I'm concerned, I'm expecting it to happen, just
mhm,
like I'm expecting High in the Clouds. But
yep,
but there'll always be more to come as long as he's healthy, which is the main thing.
Yep.
yep.
All right. This time we start with Joe.
Well, I'm going to elaborate on something. I think that Paul is, in my opinion, is the greatest songwriter of all time, pop music anyway,
Hmm.
pop rock music. Now, of course, I love, John, George, Ringo, Bob Dylan. I like Bob Dylan. A lot of times
Mhm,
Bob Dylan comes in first. Not that this is a contest per se, but I always think, yeah, Dylan is a fantastic songwriter. But I think his appeal mostly for me is in the lyrics
right,
even
right.
more than the music. Paul's mostly music, lyrics as well. But what I'm getting at is I'm still astounded at how this man can write hundreds of melodies and they'll all be different.
Mm,
For the most part. I mean, and just as we said earlier, Kit was talking about just like that. For an exercise. Hey, can you write a song while you're waiting for your wife? Oh, sure. Take a look at it. Write a song about a word that comes up in a book. Oh, sure. That is, I don't have to tell the three of you. That is amazing and so impressive that he can do that. It's not easy, and a lot of times when I'm doing my channel on YouTube, I get into how much I like the old commercial music of the '70s when I grew up, the early '70s, and people a lot of times some highbrow people they scoff at that. They say, oh, that's garbage. Bubblegum and all that. And I said, well, try to write a hit song. See if you can write a hit melody. That's something
Hmm.
to really do. And we could argue that when it comes to music, it's really the music. When it comes to songs, it doesn't necessarily need words. You can tap your foot to a tune, a melody. Lyrics are great too especially when they go together and they fit and
Mhm.
they evoke emotion if the words are perfect. But you could get that out of poetry in a book too. Just
Right.
just words. You got to put the music there. Really, the
Mm.
music is first and foremost, and that's why Paul to me he's number one. And there's so much versatility, as you say, even bogey music. It's another voice that he uses. I was thinking of
right.
injecting that in him. You're saying all the different ways he sings and everything. Don't forget he does bogey on down too.
Mm.
He can do it all. He can do it all. And check my machine.
I was just thinking, check my machine.
So it's yeah. And those darn earworms.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's what it is. People say, then man. Uh, my girlfriend will tell me that. I'll play some music. She says, I got that song stuck in my head. I woke up with that song in my head this
Yep.
morning. Thanks a
Mhm.
lot. And I'm like, what, what can I tell you? So that's very amazing from
Hmm.
Paul.
Well, it's how
It's
many
a
times have
talent.
I said, if a song is stuck in your head, you must like it.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
agree with
A
that
lot
though.
of people that want to argue that point, they
I
don't
argue it.
have to like it, but if it's there, you must be liking it.
There's,
So Paul has that amazing gift for writing hooks, and it's never stopped. When McCartney 3 came out, most of the songs were stuck in my head. Find My
Mhm.
Way was in my head for
oh yeah, yeah.
week, Women and Wives, it's all these songs. And it just does, it's not like he's lost it. He's the
Mhm.
same person
No,
he always was. And he still keeps on creating this great material.
Yeah.
Kit?
One thing that I really admire about certain artists is their willingness at times to kind of throw out the playbook, do, experiment, do what they want to do. And if you like it, great. If you don't, too bad, and Paul has been known to do that. And I really admire that. And even, starting with the Beatles, I mean, he was into avant-garde music. We know that, was experimenting with sound loops and stuff like that. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And
No, he was. He did. Yeah. Those
and
were
he
his
did-
tape loops.
yes, indeed. And but even that, but putting that aside, even writing something like Eleanor Rigby, which I still, in a way, think it's amazing that was as big a hit as it was, is that was so sophisticated. And so, I mean, that is not your typical pop of its era. I mean, I can't imagine, that he thought, yeah, the teens are really going to go for this. I mean, I mean, that was risky to do. And I mean, I don't know if that'd be a hit now. I really don't. But he took that chance. And then, of course, McCartney too. I mean, that was pretty ballsy to come out with that. I mean, there's Coming Up. I mean, that was commercial, and maybe Waterfalls, but some of the other stuff on there, I mean, like Temporary Secretary or some others, I mean, whoa. I mean, there's some pretty out there stuff, some stuff I'm pressed to play. I mean, Pretty Little Head, I love it. I mean, I love that song. It's so out there,
Really good on that. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. But a lot of people were probably like, what the hell, But it was experimental. I mean, it's great. And then fast forward to McCartney 3, Deep Deep Feeling. I mean, when that came on, I was just like, wow, he's still at it.
Right.
I mean, he's still doing it. And I just, as I said, I admire artists. Oh, and the Fireman, before I go on with that, the Fireman stuff. I mean, that he was, doing ambient music, whether you like it or not. And some of it's better than others, but I just so admire him for having the guts to do that, to experiment like that and put out stuff that isn't necessarily the most commercial, but he does it because he wants to do it. He wants to expand, his repertoire. And again, if you like it, great, and if you don't, too bad. And I just really and I admire artists who have the nerve to do that. And so that's one of my things I really admire about Paul.
I want to interject something in there. Yeah, he has the nerve to make that stuff like the Fireman and stuff, but he didn't want to call it Paul McCartney.
Yeah, that's true. The
and
Fireman
it was
stuff,
very
yes.
obscure and very hard to know about and find.
Yeah,
That part is like, well, again, everything's subtle.
that part.
That's the only
yes.
thing that
Yeah, there are
too many
some
people.
Yeah,
When you're going
particularly.
to say it, say it.
Yeah,
Right.
true. I mean, that stuff. And it really wasn't until Electric Arguments that he, because that was more,
Right.
that was critically praised, that he then
Yeah.
kind of stepped
Right.
forward and said, okay, that's me. But the previous stuff, yeah, it was a little more undercover, but of course, McCartney 2 and 3, although 3 had commercial stuff too. But he put himself out there for that. But still, I just really admire him for really, and then when he was with the Beatles, as I said, put out some experimental stuff as well. And when I say experimental, not necessarily like with loops and all that, even though he did experiment with that. But as I said, something like Eleanor Rigby, which is, wow, that was not a typical pop song of the time, but he really challenged his audience to say, okay, you're going to have to come to me rather than I'm going to follow the typical pop structure of the time.
Yeah. Even as Tom wears the shirt, the first McCartney album
Yeah,
Mhm.
There's some weird stuff on there. Karina Crore.
the glasses,
What's that?
Mhm.
glasses.
Yep. But the thing is, even when you're playing all the musical instruments and you're hearing everything that's in McCartney's head,
Mm.
and he has a style of playing everything, especially, getting used to his drumming, which is pretty funky to itself. It's that itself, this homegrown thing,
Mhm.
kind of started by him,
Yeah.
and for someone who's so well known for being Mr. Top 40 and Mr. Commercial, he's had these moments when he does this kind of stuff for which now he's more admired
Yeah.
for doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And that's the ironic thing. People are coming around to McCartney too,
Mhm.
and the first McCartney album and Ram, as we bring up
Right.
in almost every show now.
Mhm.
But that's great. Attitudes change, tastes change. For a lot of people, the solo music was too soon. They had the Beatles, they were safe with it. It's too big a change to adapt to try to accept them on their own. It's taken a while, even though they had all the commercial success. A lot of people couldn't adapt to that.
Right.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
now they're discovering a lot of that stuff is a lot better than they thought.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
Tom, I think you're next.
Yeah, thank you. And you just Kit, I agree with everything you said. That was going to be one of my takes, but I'll let you have that last word on that because well said. But Ken, you just said something, the homespun thing, and people who have been married for any length of time will tell you that it's not easy. There's challenges. And people who are married that work together will also tell you it's not easy and there's challenges.
Uh-huh.
People who have been married for 29 years in the spotlight will probably tell you that it's not easy and there's challenges. And I admire Paul and Linda, that the support that they gave each other throughout those years is legendary. I mean, remember, watching MTV and Martha Quinn talking about Paul and Linda and being one of the most successful marriages in rock history, and not really understanding what that meant. But as somebody who's married now and someone who used to work with his wife, I can tell you it's tough. And again, the support that they gave each other, that I think Joe, you hit on it, that's this, that low key, that kind of, don't let it all go to your head kind of thing. Sending your kids to public schools, even though you could afford the most expensive, best schools, in the world, keeping their kids down to earth, them being down to earth, but them as a couple and what they were able to accomplish as a couple. And Linda gets her flack, and she took it on the chin, like she wants, like she would say. And but they were able to continue to love each other, grow as a family, support each other, and that right there, it means the world to me, what they were able to accomplish. And the 30 plus years they were together, I think, what was it's 1 year and then 29 years married, so kudos to them. 30 years together, I mean, that's nothing to sneeze about.
Yeah.
It's quite a thing.
I think the only time when they weren't together was when Paul was busted in jail.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's true.
that's a very good point, Tom. In fact, that was going to be my next reason for admiring Paul. It's the
Right.
fact that he's able to achieve this incredible balance in his life between his career and his family. And yeah, I can remember so many times when Paul and Linda would be doing an interview and it would be for something that Linda was behind, whether it was her photos, her vegetarian meals, and Paul wanted the questions to go to her. He didn't want the spotlight on him, which it could very easily turn to. Or there were times when the two of them would turn up at a TV studio and Paul would be behind the curtain and let Linda do all the talking. He could have very easily have, taken part of the spotlight away from her, but he didn't do that.
Yeah.
And he let Linda be the big influence that she was in his life, to become the vegetarians that they became.
Right.
That was, due to Linda, you know. And you talk about Paul and Linda, what the kids, look at how
Yeah.
well adjusted they are,
Mhm.
for the most part. And Paul is always supporting them.
Yeah.
How many times did you see Paul and Linda, and now Nancy, they'll go to one of Stella's fashion shows,
Mhm.
or, Mary has a book of photos out or a book of vegetarianism out, and Paul is supporting that,
Mhm.
and James with his music. I'm sure Paul would be more in James's music if James wanted him to. I think Paul would do anything for his kids.
Mhm.
You know, you never hear about any bad publicity from the kids, which
Mhm.
tells you, how great the parents must be. And you have to give Linda a lot of credit there too, at the same time.
Right.
So Paul is able to have that balance. Like I said, there are times when he takes his vacations. You might see him in St. Bart's swimming or something. It's not all work for him. And even he will tell you that, he enjoys making music. So to him, it's not necessarily work. He likes the creativity behind it. For a lot of people, it might be work, but I don't think it is to him.
No.
He spends a lot of time with his family. And even recently when he was on, was it Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon? He was showing a photo of his grandkids, how proud he is of them. I'm sure that he spends a decent amount of time with them as well,
Yeah.
So I admire that. It's not easy to have a career in the public eye and to have a really good, solid family life. And Paul's been able to do that. Family has always been important to him. His
Mhm.
parents, his brother, Michael, how important his father was in his life, what an influence his father was,
Yeah.
when it came to music, all of that. And always talking about his family,
Yeah.
you know, Auntie Jen, all the different people. So yeah, I greatly admire that about him. It helps to make him, the more grounded person that he is.
But the last thing I just wanted to bring up was just the way his music, has made me feel over the last, 30, 40 years since I've been a fan of his. I've been so invested in his work as a Beatle, and all four of them, really. I mean, I just, the fact that, we're doing this and talking about, the music that excites us and makes us feel a certain way for all this time, and, and we're doing stuff, besides just this, and that we continue to keep talking about how that music makes us feel, and especially Paul's music. For me, it's just something that, I mean, I don't think I've gone a day without listening to a song of McCartney's, if it's a one song or 100 songs in one day. It's very rare that I go a day without hearing something he's done, reading something about him or watching something about him. Just, and then I know it makes me maybe sound like I don't have a life or anything like that, but it's just that, I've just been so invested in his work over these past decades that it's just, it excites me. If I'm listening to one of his CDs and one of his favorite songs is coming up, I'm getting excited, and I'm just like, I can't wait for that song to come on, and it's crazy because I always come back to his music. I mean, I could get into another genre, like the grunge. I mean, I went headfirst into grunge when it came out, but I went back to Paul and the Beatles and all their music. I've gotten into, I went headfirst into jazz and classical for, I spent, but I still keep going back to Paul and the Beatles and and the three others. It's just something about their music and his music specifically that just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And like you said, kid, it's probably for the fact because a lot of it is positive for the most part.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I can tell you that there's so much variety in his music. So many different styles of music, so many different approaches to his recording music, so many different types of albums. I'm always in the mood to hear something from him every single day. I'm always in the mood for a specific song or a specific album.
Mhm.
And when you have this much material, it's very tough to ever get tired of it.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I say that about the Beatles in general. When you look at all their solo music plus what they did as a band, I'm always in the mood to hear something from them because it's such a massive body of work. And with McCartney, you could say this about so much music, and this is what I learn from doing podcast shows and talking to people about their opinions. Opinions change all the time. Certain music that you didn't think much of when you were younger all of a sudden sound better later on.
Yeah.
You know, certain songs you dismissed, oh, it's just a B-side. Wow, that's a really good B-side. You know, that he throws on there as a B-side. Are you kidding? What? Daytime, nighttime suffering is a B-side, you know? Something like that. Some of his best work could be B-sides and songs that he scatters on CD singles. Um, it's a fascinating catalog that he has. And I just listened back to my show, Every Little Thing. There's one radio station on Long Island that plays it Sunday nights. And so when it's a new show, it's a big event for me. So I listen in the car, and I like listening in the car to one of my shows. I'm going with my wife, and it's just a 1-hour show. And at the end of it, she's saying, I can't believe that man wrote all that stuff. And that's just
Yeah.
1 hour.
Yep. That's right.
So, you know, it's beyond amazing to think how much he's given us. And the fact that, you know, as long as he's healthy, he's going to keep on giving us, which is such a blessing to itself. It is a blessing that he's still out there touring, because he's giving a lot of people who have never seen him before the chance to see him.
Mm.
Something else that, you know, you only kind of realize later on when you see parents taking their kids. And, you know, someday those kids are going to tell their kids, I saw Paul McCartney when. You know, and they'll be saying, really? You saw Paul McCartney?
Mhm.
You know, just the fact that that's going on still to this day. Same thing with Ringo.
Yep.
And to be so grateful for.
That's for
But,
sure.
yeah, I also wanted to say along the same lines of having so much variety, he is anything but a formula artist.
Right.
And that's, once you take a look at everything, yes, he had that period of time when AM radio and top 40 radio was playing him because they were catering to a young demographic that was into him at the time. And so the hits kept on coming. So he was like a hit making machine in the 70s up to the mid 80s. But if you really take a look at everything that he's done, you know, it's all over the place musically. You can't pin him down and say, well, he's just, you know, Mr. Top 40, Mr. You know, catchy jingles, Mr. Hooks. Yeah, there's plenty of them throughout his music.
Mhm.
So much more to him than just that. So, you know, it's taken me my whole lifetime to listen to all this stuff that he's done. And for anyone that's just getting into Paul now, a youngster, boy, you got a lot of work to do. Let me tell
Yep.
Yeah. And now, and
Yes.
listen to all of it.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff, you know,
Mhm.
it goes past the early 70s.
That's right. If you're one of those people that believe he hasn't done anything good since Tug of War, shame on you. Go back.
Yeah, since Band on the
Right.
Run, some people, since
Oh.
Tug
Right,
of
yeah.
War, some other people, and
Yeah.
some people actually are sophisticated enough to say since Flaming Pie he hasn't done anything.
Right.
All incorrect, in my opinion. All
Yeah,
incorrect.
exactly. He has done good stuff since Flaming Pie. You know,
Absolutely.
even into the 2000s.
it's not something that's so simple, you know, to assess his entire solo career. He's made great music in every single decade. And if it just so happens like the whole Wings period, you love the 70s, that's fine. But to me, I think his best music was after the 70s, even though I think Ram and Ben on the Run and Venus and Mars and Red Rose Speedway is now to me a great album. Back to the Egg is almost there. You know, so there's a lot of great stuff out of the 70s, but I think what he did from Tug of War, Press to Play, Flowers in the Dirt, those are 3 of his greatest albums. And then on, you know, he's consistently been very strong.
You know, Ken, I'm thinking now, some people, now that I think of it, that I talk to in the comments on my videos, some of them go up to Chaos and Creation. And then they say that was the last really good one. You know, there was nothing since Chaos. I've heard that too.
Oh, man.
Well, you know, there's a lot of great stuff he's done since Chaos, but if I had to rank my McCartney albums, my favorite ones, the ones above Chaos would be Before Chaos.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, Chaos was a masterpiece to me.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and I still think I love New and Egypt Station and McCartney 3 and most of Memory Almost Full. Can't consider Kisses on the Bottom in the same category.
Yeah, that's kind of a separate
Right.
category.
Yeah, I
of
keep
itself.
forgetting about. I keep forgetting that.
Yeah, because it's like it's such a different. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a one-off. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, it was great. It was good. It was just a one-off kind of project. Yeah.
But it's still, I still consider it his canon. I mean,
Oh, it
still
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's all part of
material on it, you know.
the same way that Run Devil Run and the Russian album is.
Yeah, it's part of his canon, you know.
I love Run Double Run.
And I'd put Electric Argument
Yeah.
there too as a great album.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it didn't stop in the 70s, folks.
Nope. Nope. Sure didn't.
Mm.
All right. Have we said all that we can possibly say at this moment?
Until
this
the next
moment?
80 years.
This didn't turn out to be 10 hours.
No.
We're gonna save all the other things that we would
Right.
say for other shows.
There you go.
And of course, I'm sure everybody watching will have more things that they admire about Paul. So leave
Cool.
them in the comments. Let us know. What do you
Absolutely.
admire about Paul McCartney?
Absolutely. Okay. So Kit, Joe, and Tom, thanks so much for doing this. This was great. And of course, to the man himself, happy 80th. Thanks
Yes.
for all the great music and all these amazing memories. Keep it going for as long as you can. As Paul might say at the end of the concerts, well, you know, there comes a time when we got to go.
Right.
And that means you got to go.
Right.
So thanks so much
But we'll
for
be
watching.
back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were great. You were great. You were great.
He hasn't done that for a while, though.
Yeah.
Fine, we'll bring it back.
See you next time.
Right.
That's right. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Happy birthday, Paul.
Happy birthday, Paul.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
You say it's your birthday.